Hi, and welcome to Dnice. This is the All About Me episode. So, my name is Denise, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Dnice515, and this is a knitting podcast. I live in New England with my almost 5-year-old daughter and my husband. And my husband convinced me to do this, make a podcast, because he feels like I have a different perspective. And so do I a little bit. I have watched podcast video and I've listened to audio podcasts for years. And I feel like I have a little bit of a different perspective because I use primarily commercially dyed yarns. And I have some independently dyed yarns and I really like them, but I feel like they're expensive and they're beautiful. But I also think that if I can buy 3 skeins of Regia or Opal or Patton's Croy on sale for $30, that I'm getting more bang for my buck than if I buy an independently dyed yarns. Although I have bought them and I have used them and they're beautiful. But I primarily use commercially dyed yarns. Something that's not so different about me is that I knit a lot of socks and gift knits for the people in my life. I enjoy socks and I enjoy scarves. Don't really do a lot of garments because sizing scares me and I don't really know if I can get it to fit me correctly and look the way I want to look. And I know that I can get socks to fit me well and other people in my life pretty well. So I started to knit about 15 years ago, but it all started when my grandmother, who crocheted, decided that she was going to teach me to crochet when I was, I think, 7 or 8. And when she taught me to crochet, it was really small hooks and crochet thread, because that's what she did. She did a lot of filet crochet, which is really intricate and beautiful, and maybe someday I can steal some from my mom because my mom has them all. My mom and my aunts have them all and they're beautiful and intricate, but I couldn't do it when I was 8 and 7, and I wanted to be perfect at it as soon as I learned. So, and my edges were never even, and they still aren't when I crochet. My edges are always like jagged and never straight. So I could never do a scarf or anything like that straight. It's mostly granny squares and blankets if I do crochet. So and then all through my young age and teenage years, my mom is really crafty. My mom can bake, she can sew, she crochets, she taught me to macrame when hemp bracelets were really popular, and she made me take all these crafting classes with her at Michael's, and she thought that I would like it, and she was right. I did like it. I did like to sew, and I did like beading classes and cake decorating classes, and it was awesome, and I learned all that. And then I went to college and I didn't do anything crafty. I read a lot and I studied, and then when I got out of college I started working in the field that I am in now, and I worked first and second shift and sometimes third shift, which is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So while I was doing that, it was really difficult to stay awake, and around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was exhausted, and I thought, oh, I could crochet again. And once again, I couldn't crochet evenly. I couldn't keep track of the stitches per row. So I was like, maybe I should learn to knit. My mom knew how to knit a little bit, so I was like, I'm gonna learn to knit. So I got knitting for dummies and yarn from Walmart and needles from Walmart, and I was like, I'm gonna knit my mom a scarf, because if it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't be as crafty as I am now. So I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I remember the second day, my knitting was so tight, as most new knitters are. Like, your knitting is so tight, and I threw the book and I threw the yarn, and I was like, I'm not doing this. This is crazy. And I let it sit for about a week, and my coworker, who's now my best friend, was like, how about that knitting stuff? I thought you wanted to knit. What happened? And I was like, oh, I can't. It's too hard. And she's like, don't give up. Keep going. And I didn't give up. It took me about 2 months to make my mom a scarf, and she still has it, which is crazy because it's like 15 years now and she still has the scarf, and it looks exactly the same because it's acrylic and it never really gets different. It looks exactly the same, and she still has it. And I did a matching hat. She still has that. And after that, I made everyone I knew a scarf, and everyone I knew a hat. And one time I made my husband's family, like everyone, a hat and scarf out of homespun, Lion Brand homespun. And and then about, I think, 5 or 10 years after I started knitting, I think it was maybe 5 years after I started knitting, I started listening to podcasts. And the first podcast I listened to were the Knit More Girls. And their podcast, they talk about knitting socks all the time in the beginning of their podcast. And I remember it was Sock Summit and what was her name? I don't remember, but there was a lot of podcasters that talk about knitting socks. Vine, and she had just started knitting socks when I started listening to her. And so I was like, I can do it. If these people can do it, I can do it. You know, I've been knitting for a long time. I had been knitting maybe 7 years by then. And I was like, I can do this. I'm going to get the magic loop and I'm going to do toe up so I don't run out of yarn, and I'm going to do this. And it took me a year to make one sock. And since then, I've discovered 9-inch circular needles, and I have knit, I don't know, maybe like 40 pairs of socks since then in the past 4 years. And I knit for family members, and everyone in my family is pretty knit worthy, and they all get socks except for my daughter, because now she says wool is itchy, which breaks my heart. So that's basically what my knitting podcast will be about. The projects that I make for my family and friends, the projects that I make for myself, mostly socks, mostly scarves and cowls, some blankets for charity, and my debt-free journey, which is knitting my stash. So I have at least a year's worth of yarn, and I'm not going to buy yarn until I can fit it all in my one 30-gallon tote, which it does not fit in that right now. So I will be doing that, and that's about it. I hope you stick around and you subscribe, and have a good day. Bye-bye.